Hello, I hope you're having a lovely day today. Today I want to talk to you about joining in the round. Sometimes when we join in the round, there's this little gap, or a jog, some people call it, because when we're knitting in the round, we're knitting in a spiral, and it tends to want to pull upwards at the end, which leaves us with this long string. And if you're a person who's bothered by this gap, there are some ways to lessen it before it can form. Now, sometimes it just gets reabsorbed in and it's not as bad, but other times it's really bad. Like this one would probably make like a little divot here, and that would cause a problem. So I feel in knitting there's never just one way to do something, but let's look at this. Before you begin, you want to make sure that your stitches are all going in the same direction. Because if you don't do that, you will have what I have here, which is a twist. You can see that there's no way that I can make all the stitches go in the right direction because when I cast on, I left a twist in it. Now, a lot of people will rip out, but if you get to the point where your join is, you can keep twisting and twisting. And now this stitch is twisted. And it's not very, sorry, all these guys are getting in my way. It's not very noticeable that this is twisted, and then you can just keep on knitting. So then you've lost your twist. But if you do it later on, you won't be able to do that because it actually twists that center yarn and you would have stitches there. So that's one thing you can do to get rid of a twist. One way to get rid of the gap is to cast on an extra stitch than your pattern calls for. And you take the first stitch you cast on and move it to the right hand needle. And then sometimes this is a little hard, but you take this stitch, the last stitch you cast on, and put it over that stitch. And then you move the stitch back to the left hand needle. And you want to tighten everything up. And see, you can't see, because it's tightened there, it won't leave a gap. And then you can just keep on knitting. So the second method I like to use is swapping the first and last stitch. And I like to secure it just in case. You want to hold it to the front of your work. You move that last stitch that you cast on, and then you place, see, it really won't go anywhere, but just in case, because, place it back on a needle, and then you're gonna swap it there. And again, once you tighten it up, then because you swap them, there will be no gap. So this is a great method. I find it is easier sometimes to do than the first method I showed you, but both methods have great results. The third way that I have used to prevent the jog is to just knit with the tail and the working yarn, and then give it a good pull, and then just start knitting with the working yarn. And remember, when you come back to that stitch, it'll be two. Don't make it into two stitches, just knit it as one. Done. So if all else fails, which most of those techniques shouldn't fail. They should work because they tighten up the yarn in that area. Switching the stitches changes how your stitches are connected, so it makes it tight. But in case you have a gap, which I don't actually have a gap really here except for that little stitch, this is your when all else fails. But you have to do this anyway, really, because you got to put the ends in at the end. You can't just leave them hanging. So what you want to do is look for the knot and then go to the V, which is those 2 stitches after it, and go from front to back. Now, sometimes this works and sometimes it doesn't, but then you want to go back down where your yarn came from, and my yarn came from here. Now you can see the knot is in the way, so you just want to pull it out of the way. You want to futz with it. For some reason I have a big knot there, but pretty much if you had a gap, see, that isn't too bad, then that closes it and there's no gap anymore. And that's also a way that you can finish off your work, and you can play with it till you like it and then tie it off. So thank you for joining me today, and happy knitting.